My name is Nelda Mitchell, and I've got two books here. Have I told y'all this? Volume 1 and Volume 2. It's just stories that happened in mine and my husband's lives growing up and then our married life together. Just little short stories, but you have to get two books from Amazon if you want to read them. And you just dial up Mr. Amazon and tell him you want volume 1 and 2 of Have I Told Y'all This, and they'll send them right to your door for you. And if you want to listen to some of them, just get on YouTube and it'll be free, and you can just hear me read some of them. And then I want to tell you to go to YouTube and look at our grandson's videos that he puts on. His is called Big South Ranching, and his name is Weston Mitchell, and he has a cattle farm, and he just takes short videos of different activities while he's working with his cattle, and you might enjoy those. Big South Ranching. Mine is Have I Told Y'all This? Right now I'm going to read you a story about my husband Dennis Mitchell and his involvement of deer hunting to begin when we had the first deer. December the 31st, 1964, Dennis Mitchell thrilled himself when he sawed off the antlers of his first buck deer to kill. He had just killed it within sight of our house. It was not only his first deer to kill, it was his first to see near our house. More than that, it was the first deer killed in a big circle that reached from Highway 84 to 588 and from Collins to Jones County line that made a circumference of 20 miles. Oh, wow. Thrill does not justify the excitement he and the community hunters experienced that Thursday afternoon. This was the first day of a 3-day official deer hunting season in the 20th century. Deer had been the only native animal that had been hunted and killed to extinction by 1900 in a big area of South Mississippi by settlers who were in need of food. Knowing this, Dennis had visions of going to the western states, especially Colorado and Wyoming, to hunt deer. He dreamed of going to a dude ranch and hunt with the big game hunters that he read about in the magazines. However, obligations to the farm and family pushed those ideas to the impossible side of his thinking. He knew how much it would cost to sign up for one of the advertised hunts. He also knew that sum of money would make his yearly farm loan payment at the bank. Some choice. There were times he was tempted, but not enough to choke off enough money to make a western deer hunt. Then sometime in the late 1950s, the Mississippi Fish and Game Commission released several bucks and does in our area for them to reproduce and restock deer around here. They were white-tailed deer that could be found. They were found at that time in the Delta area of North Mississippi. Now they moved some down here. And were these men very, very glad. In the early 1960s, a few deer would be seen in our area crossing roads or eating in the gardens. Hunters were sitting on go when the first legal 3-day hunting season opened at daylight, December 31st, 1964. They had beagles and blue-tick hounds ready. Early that morning, some hunters were directed to stand in the public roads where deer tracks were found around a wooded area. Other hunters would follow the dogs as they trailed the scent left by the deer as they ran through the woods. Dennis took the first turn with the dogs. No one got a deer that morning. In the afternoon, Mr. Hugh Graham walked with the dogs, and Dennis and Dale were together, and Dale was our son then. I mean, he's still our son, but Dennis and Dale took a stand at the sand bed on Mitchell Road, right down from our house. Dennis saw a buck run out of the woods and across a pasture and straight toward him and Dale. Oh, Dennis had a shotgun and shot buckshot as the deer kept running. He hit the deer 3 times before the deer fell in the woods on the other side of the road. Oh, Dennis opened his knife to cut the deer's throat, and he sat on the back of the deer across me, holding on to the antlers with one hand and reached around to cut its throat. The deer jumped up with Dennis on his back. Dennis dropped his knife and grabbed the other side of the antlers as they both fell over on Dennis's right leg. Charles Quitt was close enough to hear Dennis' shouts for help. Assuming that Dennis had shot Dale, he ran to where Dale was, still by the road. Charles then found Dennis and the deer in the woods and cut its throat. Charles agreed that Dennis should claim the deer for his buck. His buckshot was what knocked the deer down to the ground, even though it was Charles's knife that made the final blow. Well, this first deer had equal 4 points on each side for a perfect 8-point antler. After a brief discussion about whether to mount it or not, Dennis announced that he was just going to saw it off and he would save the antlers and mount a deer with a larger rack. He went on to say that since this was his first deer and it was so nice, that there would surely be much larger ones in the future. And hunt he did. Big deer were not to be found. In fact, very few deer of either sex or size were seen. Rumors were that the deer were thinned out by illegal hunters hunting out of season. Well, I'm here to tell you that several years passed before Dennis even saw a spike, and it was illegal to shoot spikes. They were too young, and they needed antlers. Each year, there would be more than a dozen hunters who would gather up at our house each day of hunting season to be standers up and down the roads, and Dennis and Mr. Max Mitchell would usually follow the dogs. Each year there would be from 1 to 4 deer killed by some of the hunters. The deer meat would be cooked and served at a big deer supper at the end of the season, and invite all the hunters, their families, and the landowners where the dogs ran across. This was a big thank you to these landowners who did not hunt and let them run the dogs across. The suppers would be held in the big metal building at our house. at our farm. This type deer hunting was enjoyed for several years. The hunters even organized a community hunting club and had business cards printed to give each member. All this rocked along successfully for quite a while. Deer hunting was a good excuse to have fellowship with other hunters. However, not having many deer to hunt took a big portion of the fun out of the hunt. But at the same time, showing off specialized guns, binoculars, deer grunts, and unique camouflage outfits put fun into it. Then there was one September in late 1970s when Joe Yon and Junior McKenzie were working for us that they didn't ask, they just said they wanted 2 weeks off. Now keep in mind, I said September. It was September. Well, September is a prime time on our farm to gather peanuts, soybeans, and corn. Also keep in mind that Joe Yon did not have a pot to pee in or a window to throw it out. He had a wife and a baby girl who survived in his grandparents' old house on what little we paid him. Also keep in mind that Junior McKenzie could not drive. Well, he did not have a driver's license, but he did have a 1955 Chevrolet pickup with a homemade wooden camper body on the back that he and Alice and their son Clint had when they moved to Max Mitchell's renter house from Oklahoma. And they wanted, now Junior and Joe wanted 2 weeks off the middle of September. It was not that they were asking if they could be off. They were just announcing that they were taking off 2 weeks in the middle of September. Why? Dennis demanded. Oh, they said they were going to Colorado to deer hunt. What? Dennis came unglued. You don't even know how to get there. You two together do not have enough money to get a room in a Fleabag hotel or to eat at McDonald's. And he said a lot more, for he was sure that these two had no idea all that would be involved getting hunting license and places to hunt in Colorado. And those two had it figured out. Junior would furnish the truck and Joe would drive. Junior had been a roommate of Chris Christopherson in Vietnam and had been around more than he looked like he had. They would carry a 5-gallon bucket of potatoes, a sack of cornmeal, a bag of flour, a jug of molasses, a can of lard, and Junior had a rack to put over a fire and a few pots and pans, and they would sleep in the camper and hunt on public land, and they had put aside enough money for their gas and beer. And they had had guns all their lives, and they had it all figured out and would be back in 2 weeks. Well, damn, if that doesn't just blow Dennis away. Many times he said, you just watch. Those two will come back with record antlers hanging all over that truck. And here Dennis was so frustrated. He had planted ryegrass food plots in the deep woods. He had set out sawtooth oaks, autumn olive trees, wild crabapple trees, chestnut trees. All these were reported to be the deer's favorite food. He even won a state prize for all the work he had done with the Soil Conservation Service, and he got his picture in the paper and a little plaque to hang on the wall. And if that was not enough, he grew hundreds of acres of wheat, soybeans, corn, peanuts, and vegetables that deer could freely enjoy after eating their bountiful supply of hedges and kudzu and blackberries in the woods. And what did Dennis have to show for all his efforts to please the deer and help them survive and multiply near him? That first 8 point was the only deer he had for many years that he thought was just not right. For he saw 4 points on one side and shot at a deer. He thought, well, I've got another 8 point. It fell. The other side had a broken snag. Well, cuss he did. And that was not all. He had always had a strong desire to go hunting in the western states, but had reconciled himself that he could not afford to go. And now look at Joe and Junior. Well, damn. Joe and Junior made the trip with no mishaps. I do remember if they killed any deer, and I did not ask if they had plenty to eat. Just for the record, they were stepbrothers. Their parents had divorced their other mates, and Junior's daddy had married Joe's mother. They were good workers and very good men. Dennis immediately started making plans for a camping, hunting trip to Colorado the next fall. This evolved into a yearly ritual for the next 20 plus years. Each trip was composed of 2 to 6 or 7 men, and they were all friends and relatives of him. They went mostly to Colorado and several times to Wyoming. Dennis killed several deer and 4 elk. Only 1 mule deer had antlers worthy of being mounted. He got it the first time he hunted at Dickie Joe Ladner's ranch in southwest Colorado. He went there 2 more times and did not even see a deer or elk, and that wound him up. And there is Dennis with that deer that he got at Dickie Joe's.